This exclusive live interview here on Court TV after testifying in the trial for the man who killed Ernie's partner, Susan Pickett. Julie.
We certainly appreciate his time and your interview there, Joy Lim-Nakrin. Thank you so much. We'll continue checking in with our team in the field this afternoon as we've learned that verdict of guilty on all counts for Sean Pickett. Let me bring in my guest now for some reaction to what Susan Pickett's boyfriend just shared with our team. Kirk Nurmi standing by in Phoenix, Arizona, watching that interview that Ernie Wheeler did with Joy a few moments ago. Kirk, I kept thinking, in my mind, what he said about how this killing went down is how I envisioned this happening from the start, that he attacked his mother, that dog tried to attack him and save mom, and he ended up killing both of them in the end. I kind of felt like the state could have even presented it more succinctly that way, but the jury got it in the end. Tell me what you were thinking as you were watching that interview and the information he was sharing with us.
Well, a number of things. Obviously, first and foremost, your heart breaks for Sue and Chico and Ernie as a collective, and the love they had between each other, especially when we talk about the love of that dog fighting and the dog. You know, the dog's reaction, or what Ernie speculates, is consistent with this overall pattern of behavior we saw on Mr. Pickett's part. You know, the other thing that stands out to me, Julie, is the potential for preventability of a tragedy like this, right? Because it seemed to me like there were so many signs from maybe so many different people, and I know Mr. Pickett had, or I understand Mr. Pickett had prior interactions with law enforcement, that this was a ticking time bomb, not just maybe against his mom, but other people, and the need to have that kind of intervention with people, because we saw elements of narcissism and violence and what have you, and there was just no intervention. And you know, that kind of intervention, and I don't mean it to sound cold, but that's the kind of intervention that we need to start stepping up to do to prevent tragedies like this.
Amen. You are so right, Kirk Nurmi. So well said. So many red flags. When he said the drug use, I thought, okay, bingo. And that was one defense he really couldn't present, right? Let me pick your brain about that quickly, please, Kirk. There is a defense, the drugs made me do it, is there?
No, there's not. There's insanity and there's different defenses, but being high or intoxicated, being drunk is not a defense to crimes of this nature.
Kirk Nurmi, so glad we have you on the show today to help us with our verdict coverage. We're going to squeeze in a break. When we come back, we'll continue live in Wisconsin with more on the Possessed by Evil murder trial and take a look at the arguments that swayed the jury and the defendant's testimony, too. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Or scan right now.
Thanks for spending part of your Thursday afternoon with us here at Court TV. I'm Julie Grant, your midday host. I'm covering for Ashley this hour, and we're continuing our verdict coverage of the Possessed by Evil murder trial in Wisconsin. This case was something else, with the defendant being accused of murdering his mother and killing their family dog, Chico. He claimed the killings were justified under the law, said his mother attacked him first, claimed that she was first attacking the dog before attacking him. Well, the jury didn't buy it at all. Smart jury made up of 7 women, 5 men. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. 7 men, 5 women on this jury. Took them about an hour and 46 minutes to deliberate this case, finding Sean Pickett guilty on all counts. Going to be sentenced on September the 20th. This guy's looking at life in prison for his heinous crimes. We have a great guest on the program today. I want to talk with him about what we heard this defendant testifying to when he took the stand on Wednesday. We have with us attorney Kirk Nurmi. He's done lots of criminal defense work throughout his career, very famously representing Jodi Arias. Kirk's also an author, and we're pleased to have him with us this afternoon. Kirk, you were making the point earlier about how if a defendant, wants to go with a certain defense, like self-defense we saw here, it's going to be up to them. And if he wants to testify, it's up to him. And counsel can advise and advise, right? But sometimes they don't take counsel's sound advice. Here, when you watch the defendant's testimony, I'm curious your take on it, how you think he fared up there, what you think, perhaps might have even been at all favorable to him in the end. Your thoughts, please.
I think ultimately the only thing that was favorable to him was this idea that there was no one bit of evidence that could contradict his story, right? The forensics didn't support his story, but there wasn't anything that could contradict it. And one of the things I noticed when we talk about his testimony, though, which made me feel like he went back, he collected himself over the past year and consulted with some of those infamous jailhouse lawyers, is did you notice, Julie, he was dropping these legal terms, right? I forget all that he dropped, but he's like, he was feeling threatened, he acted instinctively. He had different little catchphrases that he kept using over and over again. And it made me think that at some point in time, months ago, he was back in his jail cell talking with someone, working up this story, working up these terms in the effort that he was going to convince this jury. And, Joy put out the description narcissism, and I kind of agree with Joy. I see elements of the narcissism because he was only truly upset when he got convicted. That's when we saw him shaking his head, right? So I believe as a narcissist, he felt like he was going to get up there. He was going to tell this story where there wasn't one fact that could contradict him. He'd work that all out. He dropped some legal terms, and in his mind, he was going to walk out of the courthouse.
You're absolutely right. I love that you picked up on that, Kirk. Those words that instinctively, what he would say naturally. All I could do was shake my head like he was doing when he got the convictions there, because there's nothing natural about stabbing your mother or your dog. And he's trying to convince this jury that it was natural. I have to say, where I felt like he went way wrong, and maybe at the point that some of those jurors thought, oh, I'm going to convict him, was when he claimed his mom raped the dog. Let's look back at that moment together now.
I went out to the woods in May because I caught my mom raping my dog.
What was that?
I caught my mom raping my dog.
And when would that have been?
Around May 1st or 2nd.
Had that happened before?
Yes. About 2 years ago, I caught her molesting his scrotum.
Did you contact the Humane Society or law enforcement about that?
No, I did not, because if I contact law enforcement, what are they going to do? Are they going to believe me? No, they always think I'm the bad guy.
Well, maybe because you are Sean Pickett. Add a couple more convictions to that criminal record you've got there. That story, preposterous to me. Kirk Nurmi, I know you've been in the practice of law for a long time. You've heard a lot of preposterous stories. This one's got to be up there, huh?
Well, hearing stories like this is why I'm glad I don't practice law anymore, Julie, because then I don't have to put defendants up on the stand and tell these type of stories. But, as shocking as it was, in some ways it didn't surprise me, because here's what I think someone with a narcissistic and maybe such that detached, maybe we could go so far as to say sociopathic kind of tendencies, is that they're going to do something to enhance their credibility. They're going to want the jury to look down upon their victim same way that he probably did, right? So what better way to make up a story that can't be contradicted? I mean, lies, these people are very adept at the art of lying, and you can't prove or disprove a negative, rather, right? So throw something like that out there that can't be disproven, and then you try to muddy up the victim, try to make them look bad, and catch the jury on your side. So I think this was a blatant attempt to do just that. One of those things he probably cooked up in the past year while he was sitting in his cell.
Oh, you're right, Kirk. Being a jailhouse lawyer, I'm sure he fancies himself as such. Let's listen to a little more of what he said on the stand. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that clip. Well, that's okay. Believe me, I heard plenty of it. I actually was listening to it again this morning because I couldn't get enough yesterday, Kirk. The voice. Okay, let's talk about that for a second, because here, you know, we've deemed this trial the possessed by evil murder trial because this guy claimed that it was the evil voices in his head that made him carry out the killings. When we heard the voice on that confession tape, it was so creepy. Julia, Janae, and I both thought that there was some kind of audio distortion there. We're like, that can't be his voice. And then we heard him take the stand, and oh no, it was. That's how he sounds. But just so matter-of-factly up there, the way he told that. You know, tell me, when you, I guess, look at the, you know, to tally these circumstances and how he, you know, he's putting forth this story of mom's attacking the dog that she first raped and molested, and I happen to walk in, and mom, who's 84 pounds, that, you know, comes to me and grabs the knife, you know. He was so, like, emotionless. I think that was the other thing to me that seemed so unnatural. Like, if you truly had to stab somebody you love because they're an out-of-control maniac, you would think it would still have you so shaken up and so heartbroken and so tearful, and like the PTSD would be going and you wouldn't be able to keep it together. And he just, you know, yes, with that, you know, deep, creepy voice, you know, just told it. It was just almost unbelievable. Thoughts, please, Kirk.
Yeah, you know, and that's what I said earlier. Not like Joy, I'm not a psychologist either, but I saw, based on my experience and my interaction with sociopaths, I saw a lot of sociopathic tendencies in him. You know, you mentioned earlier, you know, he was disconnected. He didn't get upset when he saw these photos of his mother, what he had done, the dog, all that kind of damage that he had caused. He didn't get upset about that. He wasn't upset on the stand. He wasn't upset about anything until he shook his head because he had been convicted. He even cast himself on the stand as the victim. I'd get blamed for all this stuff, right? We heard Ernie talk about, you know, he thought he was better than everyone else. So there was certainly really a lot of signs, Julie, of emotional disconnect from his fellow man, his fellow human beings, which I think is one of the traits of being a sociopath. So I think that's ultimately what we saw play out there up on the stand.
Absolutely, without a doubt. You have seen so much in your time practicing law, Kirk. I think you're spot on there. Maybe in another life you'll be a psychologist, a forensic psychologist, I think, and because this guy, there's something going on with him. That's